Oh, get my details off of Rennie and drop me a line. So what do you do there?
So I lead the leisure and physical activity development there.
Well, get me to come in and do something.
Yeah, oh, no, definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant.
We have a massive talk how you use scans also. How do you work in your business?
We've got a couple of tools.
Can I get you seated, please?
Let's see whether we can combine them.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Where's Mars, can you do the door on this side, please? So, questions. It'd be really helpful if you just put your hand up, the microphone will come to you. If I can have your name and your organisation and the most succinct, which means short, question you can find. Who's going to kick me off, please?
This will be a first, if that happens.
Let's have a mic here, please.
Hi, my name is Austin from Deloitte. I think my weakness is I cannot write.
Not at all.
I'm not good at writing. I can write, but I'm being paid to write things for clients, but I'm not good at writing.
So hang on, you can take that.
Okay.
What's your question?
My question is, this is my weakness, and my question is,
how can you continue to succeed when your job focuses on the thing that you're used to?
Yes, exactly.
So you don't need to have a question, just give it to me and I'll work it out somewhere else. Now, who can I help with the answer? So let's see if we've got this right. Austin has got himself into a position where one of his key deliverables is to write stuff for customers, but he's not that good at writing.
This is really easy. Oh, seriously, this is so easy. Okay. Yeah, no. Forget that. He needs to stay in a job. So we've agreed at some stage or another, notwithstanding all the strength stuff, we've agreed we need to actually earn. All right? So Austin needs to carry on earning. So all you do, Austin, is you take my details before you go and you send me all your stuff. I'll edit it for a few bob and we'll sort it. And the reason I know this works is because our eldest son is head of financial services at Accenture, right? Global. So he's in a very senior job. He left school at 16, no qualifications at all. But his resource is, Dad, I'm going into a meeting. I'm probably about to get him the sack, actually. I'm going into a meeting, and a lot of the guys in there have watched this Shakespeare stuff, and one of them's talking about Hamlet. Give me a quick run through of Hamlet. I'm like, okay. And he says, this education's rubbish. You don't need it. Look at me. I go, well, how come you're always phoning me up? So you find, going back to René's original point about leading, you find somebody who can do it really well, and don't worry about it, and hand it off to that person, and let that person who does it really well. Because, when I write a book, for example, it goes for editing and the proofreading, and some guy's doing a job I couldn't do. He's sat in his room, but he loves being sat in his room. He loves being in a house down in Cornwall somewhere. He loves all that. He gets that bit of the job. The bit of the job that, even if I was any good at, I definitely don't want to do. But
and you continue to take the credit.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I'm telling Austin to do. Austin's going to take the credit, not me.
You're just on a nice little learner. So, Sally.
Exactly.
What advice? What percentage of your job do you really love doing?
I think for the content basis, I really love it, and it's a transactional. It's transactional, and I'm in the property industry. Like I buy and sell an office in central London for clients, but the main reason, in order to get paid more from the clients, we have to deliver the reports. Like sometimes it's like one-page things, so we have to convert it into 40-page for some reasons. And
Austin, do you know what you want to say? I mean, if I asked you to tell me the report, could you tell me the report?
I'm very good at that.
Right. Dictate it into something.
Yes.
It'll write it for you.
And also, sometimes I can only say...
This is free advice here, by the way.
Of course. But sometimes I can only come up with some bullet points, but really good bullet points. But I just couldn't make it into very nice reports.
Peter.
Okay, but Austin, what are you brilliant at in your job within Deloitte?
I think I'm deal maker. Thanks for that.
Can anyone else help Austin? I got the question. He gets the answer. He writes the report. What do you do, Austin?
I think I'm very.
This is gig economy.
I'm very good at delegating tasks.
Hey!
Thank you very much. Give a round of applause, please. In fact, that was such a good question. He gets a free copy of Spike.
Hey!
Let's take another question, please. Let's go to the back, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Beju Solanki. My company is onspirit.global. I was quite challenged about the discussion around the football manager. My question is, why is there such a situation that 7 people dropped out of one of the top jobs in football? That's the question to be asked. Whether it was a man or woman got the job is not the issue.
So one of the things that Chris said, if I heard you right, was when they heard they were going to do quite stringent, thorough background checks.
That was only one or two of them. Predominantly the 4 of them. I understand. Obviously, I haven't had this firsthand, but pretty close. 4 of them were concerned about the way Samson was treated beforehand and the way he was basically vilified, and they didn't want their whole life out there. It wasn't
the
quite.
glare of public scrutiny.
Yes,
Yeah.
that says more about the FA.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
There's a question is why we've got one of the top premier organisations in the UK operate in such a way that 8 people feel I'm not even going to go for the job. That's the question to be asked, and that's where you talk about strengths, weaknesses, etc. Not whether there's a man or a woman in the job.
No, but I think the interesting point is that you're making there is you're absolutely right. I mean, by the way, I work for the FA as well, and it is at the senior level. It is a dysfunctional organisation, and people are hired and recruited in a way at the senior level that wouldn't bear any scrutiny by any sort of normal corporate recruitment processes and so on and so forth, and. That's what that business is like. But if you go down to... I'll give you a very simple example. Have you ever played professional football?
Not professional.
Right. There's virtually 0 chance of you being a manager in the football league. Right. Sorry, are you Asian or what's your background? What's your ethnic background? Asian, right? You're Asian, you've never played professionally, you've got no chance. Right?
You're 100% right.
Right, so... How does that work through? How does it start to work through? And it starts to work through, and things are breaking down. You know, like the Me Too thing. If we'd have had this conversation about Hollywood 12 months ago, we'd have been saying there's no chance of you getting anywhere. You had no chance of you getting somebody sacked. But Harvey Weinstein, untouchable. And something breaks. If it's wrong, something breaks.
We did a session here last year, beginning of last year, around the Rooney Rule. We had a representative of the FA who, and not you, we had a representative of the FA who just didn't understand why that would make a difference. Less than 12 months later, they've implemented it.
We had one.
So reaction.
I was on a panel. I was on the panel on the rule. Not yours, obviously on the panel. And I said, yeah, obviously the Rooney Rule's got. I do a lot of work in America with American sports as well. I said, well, obviously we have to. And the guy from the FA said, won't happen here. I said, of course it will happen. You know, it'll happen eventually. You know, I think the interesting thing is always. From my generation during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, we always, I say, if we look 50 years ahead, and you could ask Protestants, Catholics, anybody in Northern Ireland, if we look 50 years ahead, is there going to be a united Ireland? Virtually everybody goes, yeah, of course. Right, how are we going to get from here to there? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But we know something will happen at some stage. So... to get it to be a functional organisation, is it government pressure? Is it? Here's a very interesting. Why?
Quickly, I'm going to take another.
No. This is a really important point. Why did Glasgow Rangers start to hire Catholics?
Trying to be more inclusive.
No, because Celtic won the league 9 years in a row.
Change comes in many different ways. Let's take another question. Mark's just in front of you here, and then Ruth, I'll come to you next.
Hi, my name's Pina. I'm self-employed. and I work alone. So, like a lot of self-employed people, I think one part that we think we're weak at is selling, and certainly a part that I don't enjoy. So,
Austin's in sales.
I heard that actually. I knew somebody would say that. Anyway,
Austin.
I'll write for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just basically really. If it's something that isn't your strength,
This is very good.
then it's not necessarily enjoyable,
Yes.
which makes it feels like a weakness.
Yes.
So how can that change?
That's a really great question. And the context is great. I'm self-employed. I work for myself. How do I cover all the bases? Well, there are some things I'm going to be brilliant at and some things I'm not going to be so good at, but because it's me, what do I do? For you, Sally.
Well, I think if you're self-employed, the answer is you can't cover all bases. Initially, of course, it's you until you can afford to employ other people. But on the point about selling, what I would do if I was working with you on that is I would get you to break that down and to say, so what are the things that you were really good at? I had the idea I wasn't very good at selling, but what I am really good at is connecting with people. I'm really good at inspiring people. I want to make a difference. I like to serve. If you add all those up together, the output is very often a sale. But I think selling is a
Fabulous.
particular one because
Really
people
great.
often think selling is a negative thing. No, it's serving.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Peter?
Well, it's also a question whether you can build self-confidence if you want to solve your insecurity on sales yourself. So you need someone to be a mirror on the one hand, and you have to, and then I completely agree with Sally, you have to drill down what the aspects are which you think you're not good at, and is that true or not? If it's true, find someone to help you. So
Very
drill
good.
it down.
Very good. Ruth?
Hi, it's Ruth Lau, Great China Partners Limited. My question is, once people have identified their strengths, how can they capitalize on those?
So this is really interesting. So I now know my strength, so what? What happens next? Peter?
What could hold them back is the question back for you. Because if you know what your strengths are, there's an automatic urge for people to develop along that line. So what you see is people start moving if they got the confidence that they can do something which is interesting, which can inspire. So people start to move directly and find a way to find help, to get a course or take the experience, but the driver is within, always.
So once I've discovered that I've got a strength, I'm more likely to look for opportunities to
Absolutely.
capitalise upon
Yeah.
it. If I don't know what it is, how do I capitalise upon it? Say.
If you don't know what it is.
No, I'll go back to it.
Yeah, so the first step is conscious awareness, and then I think it's about reflection. So one very practical tip I'd give you, Ruth, is on a Friday afternoon, think about what have I done this week? How have I used my strengths? How have I brought my strengths to bear on these projects or these situations? How could I do it even more next week? Stretch yourself in the direction of your strengths.
So another question over there.
Paul Warren, self-employed coach. Question for the panel, but Sally, in your book you mentioned at the age of 15 or mid-teens that we've basically been moulded and we know what our strengths are. I have 4 sons who currently, ranging from the ages of 19 up to 27, who still don't know what their strengths are. One of them, which Rennie has kindly helped, is currently in Rwanda, and he said to me after his geography degree, "There isn't the job out there for me." And I said, "Go make the job that you want to do." What are we doing as a society to help those youngsters coming through that Chris is talking about, that we have every opportunity as parents to deal with? What can we do as parents to help our children identify those strengths and then kick back against society that wants to put them into a box and say, go create? What can we do as a society to help that happen?
I think it's a very good question. It's a big question. I think our schooling system doesn't support that thinking in this country. That's a whole other topic. I think as parents to notice what are your children drawn to, and when you see them loving something or getting a buzz out of something, ask them, what was it about that thing that you liked, and encourage them to try more of it. Not to box them in, because I'm a great believer in, giving them wide experience so they can try lots of things, but I think asking those sorts of questions is really helpful, because then you can give positive feedback and encourage them to go in the direction of their strengths.
But we could also put your programme into schools, into universities, to give them a head up so that they're not, when they reach that age when they're paying back their debt, that they're actually doing it willingly. And like Chris, when they go to business school, they know what they want to do so they can accelerate that learning. So all of these things could come in a lot sooner.
I don't know the English market, but in the Dutch market we do a lot with the schooling system, helping students, but also teachers, to have a better understanding of each other and what a student needs to develop. So what you need to create is a context in which a student or a young person can develop in. And we tend to put them in boxes, absolutely, but it's just opening up. So the schooling system in Holland slowly but steadily starts to be more coaching-wise or development-wise and less content or knowledge-wise. And that's a very important development, and it's so slow and it's so clear. But our Ministry of Education is working on that, clearly. So it will take time.
Just a short story on that, which I think is something to be mindful of in the context of your question. I was chatting to a teacher who is working with our strength stuff in her college, which is an inner city college. And she was working with this young man who didn't have a lot of self-confidence. She was taking him through his strengths. And in the end, he decided he wanted to be a blacksmith. And he was so excited about this. He seemed to have all the component strengths. And she was really excited that she'd help this young man who didn't have much confidence, had no direction. His parents then tried to dissuade him because it wasn't a profession. So for me, there's still a bias that people should have a career or a progression, and that's better than a job. And they put the blacksmith label in the category of job, and I think that's a great pity.
And let's just pick up on that, Sally, 'cause that's a really good point. Do we, as society and maybe as parents, be a little bit more patient with failure? Better understand that maybe we're not the determinants of what our next generation, our children, will do. And perhaps have much more of a blank canvas on what success for the individual looks like. Chris?
I think this is really interesting. The points that you both made about putting people into boxes is, I don't know if any of you are big fans of Mickey Flanagan, but you know the white van story with Mickey Flanagan, when he tells the white van story, when the careers teacher comes in and says to him, and he said, what do you want to be, son? And the kid goes, I want to be driver van. And all his mates turn around and go, Rene, you're dreaming. We ain't the white van drivers. We're the guys who put the stuff on the van, And that is still prevalent. You're not allowed to do this. And the conversation I had with the Amos group was, actually, you have got a real opportunity here, and this is what the teachers should be saying. You're allowed to do anything. When I was young, if you went into a legal office, you were a clerk. You were a clerk. You were never going to be a lawyer. You were a clerk. You ran the business. You ran all the barristers. You did all their life for them. You ran everything for them. They made all the money, but you ain't going to be one of those. And that is, as Sally was saying, that's still sort of prevalent. That there's certain things from your class or your background or whatever you're not allowed to do. You're allowed to do anything.
How do we reinforce that?
Well, I think where Peter's stuff can help is actually, forget the kids, you need to be educating the teachers.
Very good.
They're the problem. The kids are never the problems. The they want to learn. They're desperate to learn. They're not the problem.
Let me come to you for your question, please.
Thanks. Janet Morgan-Jane, Learning and Skills. I'm glad you said that last bit about the teachers being the problem, because I was going to challenge you on people can do whatever they want. I work in a university myself as well. I work with students who are neurodiverse, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and the like. So interesting about the writing. I'll talk to you about that afterwards.
Hang on, she's taking that job.
I want a piece of the pie as well. I want a piece of the pie. My question, and also I run a leadership development program for BAME staff in higher education.
Okay.
So these are supposed to be the people that have made it in a lot of ways, and a lot of them still don't feel that they're able to play to their strengths. So I'm not so sure that people are able to do what they want. I think I would take issue with that. So my question is really, when you work with some of the employers, because Sally, you mentioned you work with employers and you're doing your work with the curriculum, which I think is so exciting that people can create their own reading lists and perhaps not even read at all, which would be fabulous for some of my students. What are some of the practical things that leaders are doing in those organisations where you're saying it's working and they're saying it's fantastic? What are some of those practical changes that they're making structurally and institutionally that are going to enable people to play to their strengths?
Very good.
There are some very specific things that leaders in the businesses that we work in, the organisations we work in, they always tell their own story about why they care about this and why they believe in the strengths revolution. They sponsor it very actively, so they go out, they talk to people, they meet new recruits, things like that. They believe it in their hearts. It's not just a head thing. It's not just a let's look at the numbers and track the bottom line. They support people. So I remember one day I said to this HR director, this person, they would be great at that. Can we have them on the team doing that? And she said, yeah, sure, do it. So they support the champions, and as Renee's very often saying, leaders can come from anywhere. So they support these leaders that are trying to move things forward, and they congratulate, and their mindset becomes, we're focusing what's working, whether it's in the business for customers or whether it's individuals, because as we all know, great performance comes from focusing on your strengths and boosting those strengths, not from constantly nitpicking weaknesses.
And it's interesting because just to back Sally up on that, the leaders that spend their time telling people where it's wrong and helping them to fix it, as opposed to looking for the people in the organisation who are doing things right and make them role models, you have a completely different reaction and culture. I mean, if you see the really big, they're always looking for how can I inject some more enthusiasm, make people feel better about themselves, and inadvertently show them what's not right, but my time is spent building people's confidence.
Yeah, I think there's a really good point you made there earlier on as well, is that I go back to this confidence thing about your job as a leader is to provide that confidence. And I was one of the jobs I had was to be the dean of a new business school that was being started more or less from scratch, and it was an alternative provider, so it was not in the state centre. And I was a bit worried, who am I going to get in to do these jobs? And what it ended up, I got in a lot of young people who were, newly minted PhDs, 27, 28 years old. And of course, we were running an MBA program. My MBA director was 27. Now, in the state sector, that would have been a 40-year-old or a 35-year-old, but she was 27. And the problem is, and this is where I see my job, she was like, I said, look, you need to be the MBA director. And she says, I'm not ready for that. I said, do you think I'm a smart boss? She said, yes. I said, well, I think you're ready. So if you think I'm smart and I'm telling you you're ready, you better get on with it. And so she goes, right, OK, I'll get on with it. Now, I'm there supporting all the time, but basically, I think, after about 2 months, she didn't need any support at all. She was off and running. Why? Because she's 27, she's smart. Actually, this is going back to the point that anybody can sort of do anything. And so if though your people are not doing it, which was your point, some of your people are not doing it, if they work for you, then you need to start giving them confidence to do it, because they can do it.
I think it's not just confidence, though. I think confidence is a big element of it, but I think
do you think they haven't got the skill set?
No, I think what I'm saying is that sometimes people do have the strengths, and certainly if I just use dyslexia as an example, a lot of people, by the time they get to the university and we see them, they know their strengths, but they're working in an environment that does not play to their strengths. They have to have that reading. But
I think the point you made about the reading list was an interesting point. I was going to come back on that. Is that no, it doesn't have to be a reading list. It has to be a resource list. This is where I'm getting help from, and it's a book or it's a. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, we agree 100%.
So where Renee talks about building confidence, it starts by giving confidence, because you can't build from distrust to build confidence. So a good leader, so the leader needs to be confident in his people, even if they have a dyslexia or whatever problem, and give them room to develop. And that builds confidence with the people there. That's why I asked you the question, what are you really good at? And there's a statement, because that's what helps people, and leaders should enable, and only enable.
Good leaders create followers, great leaders create leaders.
Yeah.
The role of the leader is to create more leaders, enable them, give them your confidence.
I'll tell you a small story from out of my company. Rwanda, who's sitting on the back there, she's one of our young staff in our management team, completely responsible for our training business. She took that over from me, and at some point in time she said, I can do that, so get out of here. That's the name. So a few weeks ago, she said, in the end, I want to lead that company. Whoa. And she said, and I still need you. But I know that driver is there. So if I would be a bad leader, I would block her because she's after my job. No, she's going to grow the company. So it's about trust and confidence in your people, but also in yourself as a leader. So an insecure leader will not be able to give the confidence which is necessary to let the people blossom around it. So that's the main thing.
Very good. I've got a question here, and I'll come to you straight after there with your jack-in-the-box hand at the back there. Let's come here first.
There were two of us that had questions.
Let's take one of you, and then I'm going there, then I'm coming back.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name's Inkem Ekukoma. I'm a lawyer with Axiom. The question I had was, is there a conflict or a clear link between your passion and your strength? So if you have a passion for something, is the strength going to, you know...
I love football, but... Sorry.
It's a good indicator that you've probably got a strength in that area, for sure.
The things I tend to be good at are the things I tend to enjoy. The things I tend to enjoy are the things I tend to be good at.
It all starts by passion and how you let that manifest as a strength. So it starts with passion. No passion, no strength.
Nice and succinct. Can I come to you now?
Thank you. Hi, Michelle Chuvonga. I hold two hats. I've got my own business, but I also work with the University of Surrey researching digital stuff, new technologies and things. Yeah, very complicated. My question really is around negativity. I mean, I used to work in banking and finance. I've held very senior positions at a very young age, had very little sort of support from role models. We talked about role models. How do you deal with negative energy from people who you almost look up to, and they don't support you as you go along your journey? How do you deal with that? And one of the frustrations, is slightly controversial, but one of the frustrations I've had throughout my career is that I've always kind of aimed to look at women role models, for example, you know, to support me in my careers. And in all the roles that I've held working in banking and finance have been very male-dominated and very few women. The few women that were there did look up to them, but had very little support. How do we deal with that and change that narrative to support people a little bit better?
Good. So, do you want to kick us off?
So one of the things that I always say to my clients when they say, is there a downside to this? I say yes. Some of them are up for it, some of them aren't. And the downside is that when you start developing people in the direction of their strengths, and when you start bringing in people into jobs that play to their strengths, some managers and some leaders get very threatened. And that's obviously a problem. So then the question is, what do you do about that? And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the leader at the top. Do they support? 'Cause, you know, normally, I don't think people want to go to work to do a bad job. There are many managers that have been promoted. They don't love being managers, but you know the story. So they've been promoted out of their zone of strength. So it's back to leadership, and it's back to how can you to support those people to be in jobs that they love. And it's not easy in big, complex organisations, the like of which financial services exist.
Peter?
Well, it's also about not taking up on your shoulders the problem of someone else. So if someone's negative, always looking at the dark side instead of the light side, it's also your own leadership as a person, letting that go. It's not yours. And stay positive, and that's a difficult one because there's a pressure. But it's in the essence, it's not yours, so drop it. I would almost say.
And you know, all the research tells us that increasingly, I think the figure's about 80% of people resign from their bosses, not from the organisation. And I think nowadays we're seeing with, especially the millennials, who are prepared to ask the question, do your values match mine? If your values don't match mine, I'm going to take my talent elsewhere. And I think making informed choices about what are the values of the organisation, is it a fit for me? Be very careful about who am I going to be working for. They have the direct impact on my performance, my feeling on, do I have the sort of chemistry and the relationship that's going to work? 6 months after you arrive is too late to be really harsh about it. It's do the research beforehand, understand what you're getting yourself into, be honest about your strengths, the things that maybe you're not so good at. What sort of environment do I need to go in that's going to enable me to thrive? And Chris, again, the line you put in the book, playing to your strengths may not get you the best paid job, but it might get you the right job.
I think there's an interesting thing here though as well, is that we still have a structure, generally a structure that says, you know, the higher up the organisation in more managerial positions you get, the more money you get. And a lot of people think, actually, I want to aspire to be that, whereas actually they're really good trader. You know, like Austin, really good sales guy. Does he want to be in charge of the sales team? Like, is he, you know, is he that good at that? But so people want to be the number one as they're going up the organisation, without sort of working out am I that guy? And I'll give you, since we're telling stories, I'll give you a very simple one. I do a business module on a thing called the Pro License course, which is the course for a football association that you need to get if you want to manage in the Premier League, right? So this is the top course. And Paul Ince, who's a footballer who's on the course, obviously they're all footballers, but they were on the course to be managed. And he wasn't there on this particular day, and I said, oh, where's Paul Ince? And we were doing some work on the red flags that you see in a club in terms of their finance, in terms of their crowds and all that basically are saying this club's going down a pan. You know, so there's about 7 or 8 red flags, and if there's a lot of them there, you basically should keep away from that, as for you, by the way. So Paul Ince isn't there. I said, well, where's Paul Ince? And they said, oh, he's going for an interview for a job. And the interview he was going for was at Blackburn Rovers. We'd literally done the Blackburn Rovers case study. Out of the 7 red flags, they had 7, right? So Paul Ince is going for a job at Blackburn. I'm like, whoa. And all the class are going, oh, 7 red flags. I go, just out of interest, I said, if you were offered the job at Blackburn, who would take it? Every one of them put their hand up. Because they want to be in that job. Great. They don't know whether they're any good at it or not, but they want it. And then when they get in there, do you know what the rate? It's less than 40% of people who take a first job as a manager in professional football ever get another job as in that role. Never. And then they drop down and they run the academy. Turns out they love running the academy. You know, they become the second. They become, you know, the number 2. Turns out that's what they're great at, being the number 2. The assistant.
There's a great learning there. Our enthusiasm and excitement in landing the job may sort of militate against our honesty about, are we really suited to this role?
But Chris, that's where you started, though.
Yes.
Oh, there's a lot more stats I could give you that are even worse than that.
Let's take a couple more questions before we close. I've got one here at the front and I'll come to you at the back. So let's take these 3 as a lot for closing 3, please.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name's Amanda Smith. Company Love Free Limited, but that's one part of what I've been through in terms of my journey. So this question is directed to Sally in particular, actually. Just kind of understand a little bit about what you offer, because one of the things that I've done is worked within social care, and in terms of strengths, it's really crucial because we work a lot with young people, children and young people who are having challenges within their family, and the idea is to work with the network to support families to do better. Mm-hmm. The irony is strength is not looked at. It's just so interesting. So when I was there, and I still do some work as well, it's not around what we should be doing to support families and help them identify their strengths. What do you do? Because what I find is some of the workforce that we have are susceptible to negative energy. So you talk about going in and working with the leaders and directors, what is the follow-up? Because that's what I'm interested in. I see whether we can talk about how we can have follow-up for organisations like social care when they should be supporting families throughout.
Great question, and I think we can spread it wider than that to all of you. That this is interesting, that the one thing that's left out is the inherent strengths, and we're focusing on it's a negative environment. After we've done the measurement and we know where we are, what happens next?
I spent a day with a lady who was a carer in a very, very rough council estate up north, and she was going into people's homes to look after them. And even though her manager said to her, Sally's coming to find out why you're so great at what you do, she's going to spend the day with you, she was scared. She was hostile to me, but it was because she was scared. We spent the day together. At the end of the day, she looked at me in the face and she said, "That's been one of the best days of my life." And I said, "How come?" And she said, "Nobody's ever shown that much interest in me before." And I think therein lies a seedling of what we're talking about here, which is when people have an experience for themselves about somebody really wanting to know their strengths, who they are, what they care about, what motivates them, when they've had that experience, they can't unhave it. And that spreads to in this lady's case, the client she was visiting, her family. And it's like when you're on the road, you can't get off the road. It's not the only answer. Structural things have to happen, organisational things have to happen, but it's a really good start.
Fantastic start. Pete?
Well, if I translate to the Dutch environment again, we work with a lot of social welfare companies and a lot with young people having trouble, misbehaving, etc., which most of the time are the nicest, most creative kids you can imagine. Helping them with the scan is one, because you get an insight, and even at a young age of 8, 9, 10, you can help them really to see what their inherent strengths are. So that's only one small part. But we train people in the companies to coach with our instruments, just to help and to get a feel of what the environmental side is. So what's in their system, their family system or school system, what's influencing them in a positive and negative way, and start giving more positive impulses, which is a very important one. The more positive impulses they get, the better they will start to look at themselves, and the system will change. So, yeah, it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, but it's bound to change.
2 final questions quickly.
Hello, Helena Hughes from the Instant Group. I wondered who your role models were and who you aspire to be like, whether that's somebody in the public eye or somebody personally.
Come on.
All of you.
For me, it's the thing that I realise I'm always drawn to is people who have courage. Whatever arena that is. I met a young woman recently who was a human rights activist, and she was working in dangerous environments, and when I asked her why she did it, she said, "I can't not do it. I know what's wrong, I can't not do it." So it's people of courage.
Excellent. Chris?
That's really interesting, because it's made me think about it. I've never had one. I think of certain events and think, that's how I want to behave. I want to behave like that guy in that instance. I want to be that guy. I don't want to be a guy. I want to be that guy in that instance, or how that woman dealt with that. I would like to think. I would like to think I was as good as that in that particular instance, or I would like to think I was as caring as that when that person did that. So I suppose it's sort of, it's not the reverse of a strength, but it's worrying that you're not going to match up. That if they did that, would I let everybody down if I was in that position? I hope I'd be like that. So trying to match up to that. And the other thing I've always done in my life is, and I never knew I was doing this until somebody sort of articulated it, is that I've always told the story of the future as if it's today. So I make up a lie. I'm going to do this, and I tell everybody this is what I'm going to do, and then I sort of have to live up to it. Then, oh shit, I've told everybody I'm going to be so and so. I better do it then. I've told my mum and dad I'm going to get this degree thing. Well, I better do it then, hadn't I? So I sort of create a future that I have to work towards, you know. But I always think, you know, like people like Martin Luther King, you know, is he a role model to me? I think he's fantastic. René knows, and of course I was a teenager in America in the '60s. You know, and I'm sure, and Kim was as well. You know, I'm there. Bobby Kennedy's getting killed. You know, Martin Luther King's getting killed. Everybody's getting killed who we thought was going to take the future. You know, people make a lot of jokes about the '60s, but the one thing about the '60s, if you weren't there, and I know Kim was, and I don't know if anybody else was, but in the '60s, that genuinely, we thought there was real hope for the world, and so.
And that's powerful in itself.
Yeah, so when all these guys got killed, it was like the death of hope to a certain extent, which why it's so powerful for us. So you sort of don't want to let anybody down, I suppose. You know. So
Peter,
it's not one role model. I can mention Nelson Mandela, who in his life transformed from someone who was in a fight in that country to a very open and trustful person. That's one. But it's always about people stepping up after they fell down, had trouble, and stood up and started to be well, much more who they really are and open to what they want to do in their life. So that can be young people, that can be famous people. It's about the energy they have.
closing question. Let's have the mic, come on.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dana Byfield and I'm the founder of a wealth creation company helping professional women live richer. Just a final question to the panel, and we've talked a lot about people's strengths this evening, and just kind of following on from what Janet said about environment. I read an amazing statistic in an amazing book recently that stated that there are 70,000 self-made millionaires in the UK, 49% of which are dyslexic, and 59% of which come from dysfunctional or disadvantaged backgrounds. So we have played a narrative all over the world, but especially in this country, with a very stiff British upper lip, and we do things in a certain way, when actually the reality is that it's those people that have challenges and come from disadvantaged backgrounds and who find and perfect their spikes that actually are the ones that make it to a certain level of success. So how can we actually bring that narrative into the public domain and actually have that as a conversational piece? What is your spike? What are you good at? And what makes you amazing?
So what a great question to close off. And that's got to be worth yet another book, and that was a great book you got that quote from. But I'm going to summarise this to close this. I'm going to summarise it to close. Chris is our challenger brand. We have him as our resident academic. He's prepared to ask the questions that no one else will and challenge conventional wisdom. With Sally and Pete, we've got two fantastic role models who have built their business and their careers finding the strengths in others. The reason we put the panel together today was to get different voices from different backgrounds, but all culminating in one thing. How do we get the best out of each other, the people we work with, the people we care about, and everyone else around us? And one of the major things I think we should consider, and speaking on behalf of all of us towards our closes, the way that many of us have been brought up through education and in the organisations and in the business we work is that everyone has to be an all-rounder. You're measured as though you're going to be brilliant at everything. Just stand back from it. It's nonsense. It's not possible. But perhaps the new age thinking is we build teams where everyone has a differing strength and we complement each other. So therefore, it doesn't matter what your strength is and what you're not so good at. Find a team where you can add value and you're going to be respected. And I think in many different ways, everyone on the panel, in their own way, is trying to help every individual find out what they're really great at, and then what's the environment that's going to enable you to flourish. Just discovering your strengths in the same old job, in the same old place, doing the same old thing may not be the solution. You may need to think a little bit more holistically than that. And the message I would like everyone to take away in summary of this evening is that no one need be labelled as having a limitation and a weakness anymore. Focus on the things you stand out at. And if I can just leave you with an image to takeaways, Barack Obama, what made him great? And let's remember, this was a community organiser who studied law at Harvard, was a rookie senator from Chicago who ends up being President of the United States. And many would say in retrospect today, boy, do we miss him even more today. But Joe Biden, his vice president, did all the things that Obama wasn't good at. He was a rookie president. Biden had 40 years' experience of the Washington machinery. Obama, the best front man you could ever have, one of the greatest communicators who could do engagement. Biden worked it hard under the bonnet behind the curtains. Who's your complementary partner? Which team are you going to shine in? What's the organisation that you need to find that's going to make you look at your best? Is it straightforward? Perhaps not. Is it worth investing in some time on some of my learning panel? I think so. Please join me in giving them a wonderful round of applause for this evening. V, when's the date of our next event?
21st of March.
What's the subject matter?
Young, gifted, but blocked.
So it was 21st of March. We're going to look at the power of the next generation. We believe that we may need to skip a generation to find new age leadership. Book early to avoid disappointment. Come and join us for a drink, please.